Hi, I'm Aisha. You are watching Educational Hub. Creating an excellent literature review is essential for receiving good grades and building a solid dissertation, thesis, or research project. However, it is not an easy job. This video will explore 7 typical errors found in literature reviews, allowing you to steer clear of these missteps and present a literature review that stands out. So, first, we need to understand, what are literature reviews? Literature reviews are literally reviews of the literature, the academic writing, for example, academic books, journal articles, etc., that have been published on a particular research topic. They aim to identify what is already known on the topic at that time. Alright, the steps involved in this research journey are 1. Selecting a research question. 2. Searching the literature that has been published in the area. 3. Managing the literature search results. 4. Synthesizing the research literature. 5. Writing an assessment review. 6. Rethinking, refining and reworking your review in an iterative process until you are satisfied. Okay, now going to main topic. 7 literature review mistakes. We've covered a lot of ground in this video. Let's quickly recap on the 7 most common literature review mistakes. Mistake 1. Over-reliance on low-quality sources. One of the most common issues we see in literature reviews is an over-reliance on low-quality sources. This includes a broad collection of non-academic sources like blog posts, opinion pieces, publications by advocacy groups and daily news articles. Of course, just because a piece of content takes the form of a blog post doesn't automatically mean it is low quality. However, it's generally unlikely to be as academically sound, well-researched, objective and scientific as a journal article. So you need to be a lot more skeptical when considering this content and make sure that it has a strong, well-reasoned foundation. As a rule of thumb, your literature review shouldn't rely heavily on these types of content. They should be used sparingly. Ideally, your literature review should be built on a strong base of journal articles, ideally from well-recognized, peer-reviewed journals with a high H-index. You can also draw on books written by well-established subject matter experts. When considering books, try to focus on those that are published by academic publishers. Mistake 2. A lack of landmark, seminal literature. Inadequate literature reviews often lack essential landmark literature related to the research topic. Landmark literature, also known as seminal or pivotal work, comprises articles that first introduced a highly significant or influential idea within a specific field of study. These articles are responsible for initially establishing the relevance of the research area. Poor literature reviews often lack landmark literature because students may not be well versed in the existing research or may focus only on presenting the latest studies. This creates a problem since a good literature review should always recognize the influential writing in the field. Well, you can usually spot these by searching for the topic in Google Scholar and identifying the handful of articles with high citation counts. They'll also be the studies most commonly cited in textbooks and, of course, Wikipedia. But please don't use Wikipedia as a source. Mistake 3. A lack of current literature. It's incredibly important to acknowledge the landmark studies and research in your literature review. However, a strong literature review should also incorporate the current literature. It should, ideally, compare and contrast the classics with the more up-to-date research, and briefly comment on the evolution. Of course, you don't want to burn precious word count providing an in-depth history lesson regarding the evolution of the topic. Unless that's one of your research aims, of course. But you should at least acknowledge any key differences between the old and the new. To find current literature in your research area, you can once again use Google Scholar by simply selecting the Since link on the left-hand side. Depending on your area of study, recent may mean the last year or two, or a fair deal longer. Mistake 4. Description instead of integration and synthesis. This one is a big one. And, unfortunately, it's a very common one. In fact, It's probably the most common issue we encounter in literature reviews. All too often, students think that a literature review is simply a summary of what each researcher has said. A lengthy, detailed, he said, she said. This is incorrect. A good literature review needs to go beyond just describing all the relevant literature. It needs to integrate the existing research to show how it all fits together. A good literature review should also highlight what areas don't fit together, and which pieces are missing. In other words, what do researchers disagree on and why might that be? It's seldom the case that everyone agrees on everything because the truth is typically very nuanced and intricate in reality. A strong literature review is a balanced one, with a mix of different perspectives and findings that give the reader a clear view of the current state of knowledge. Mistake 5. Irrelevant or unfocused content. Another common mistake we see in literature review chapters is quite simply the inclusion of irrelevant content. Some chapters can waffle on for pages and pages and leave the reader thinking, so what? So, how do you decide what's relevant? Well, to ensure you stay on topic and focus, you need to revisit your research aims, objectives, and research questions. Remember, the purpose of the literature review is to build the theoretical foundation that will help you achieve your research aims and objectives, and answer your research questions. Therefore, relevant content is the relatively narrow body of content that relates directly to those three components. Mistake 6. Poor chapter structure and layout. Even the best content can fail to earn marks when the literature review chapter is poorly structured. Unfortunately, this is a fairly common issue, resulting in disjointed, poorly flowing arguments that are difficult for the reader to follow. The most common reason that students land up with a poor structure is that they start writing their literature review chapter without a plan or structure. Of course, as we've discussed before, writing is a form of thinking, so you don't need to plan out every detail before you start writing. However, you should at least have an outline structure penned down before you hit the keyboard. So, how should you structure your literature review? We've covered literature review structure in detail previous video. However, as a quick overview, your literature review should consist of 3 core sections. 1. The introduction section, where you outline your topic, introduce any definitions and jargon and define the scope of your literature review. 2. The body section, where you sink your teeth into the existing research. This can be arranged in various ways, for example, thematically, chronologically, or methodologically. 3. The conclusion section, where you present the key takeaways and highlight the research gap or gaps which lays the foundation for your study. Mistake 7. Plagiarism and poor referencing. This one is by far the most unforgivable literature review mistake, as it carries one of the heaviest penalties, while it is so easily avoidable. All too often, we encounter literature reviews that, at first glance, look pretty good. However, a quick run through a plagiarism checker and it quickly becomes apparent that the student has failed to fully digest the literature they've reviewed and put it into their own words. But the original author said it perfectly. I get it. Sometimes the way an author phrased something is just perfect, and you can't find a better way to say it. In those pretty rare cases, you can use direct quotes and a citation, of course. However, for the vast majority of your literature review, you need to put things into your own words. The good news is that if you focus on integrating and synthesizing the literature, you shouldn't run into this issue too often, as you'll naturally be writing about the relationships between studies, not just about the studies themselves. Remember, if you can't explain something simply, in your own words, you don't really understand it. If you have any questions about these literature review mistakes, leave a comment. We will do our best to answer. Thank you for watching. Like, share and subscribe my channel for more informative videos.